What should have been the happiest day of Mia Lawson's life turned into a nightmare of betrayal, obsession, and murder. A day meant to celebrate love and unity instead unraveled into a web of secrets, lies, and a crime so shocking it left an entire community reeling. The story begins in the quiet town of Willow Creek, nestled in the heart of the United States. It was the eve of Mia's wedding to her fiancé, Adam Blake. The pre-wedding party was nothing short of magical. The garden was adorned with twinkling lights, the aroma of freshly prepared food filled the air, and the laughter of friends and family echoed through the night. Mia, dressed in a soft blush gown, radiated happiness. Her eyes sparkled with the kind of joy that only comes from being deeply in love. Adam, tall and charming, never left her side, his gaze fixed on her as if she were the only person in the world. Among the guests was Ethan Cole, Mia's childhood friend. Ethan had always been a quiet presence in Mia's life, someone who lingered in the background, always ready to help but never seeking the spotlight. He watched the couple from afar, his easy smile masking emotions he kept buried deep within. To everyone else, Ethan was just a loyal friend, but as the night unfolded, his role in Mia's life would take on a much darker significance. Mia's mother, Lila Walker, was the proud hostess of the evening. She had poured her heart into every detail of the celebration, from the perfectly coordinated decor to the heartfelt toast she delivered. Her words were filled with love and pride as she raised her glass to the happy couple, wishing them a lifetime of joy. But as Laura's gaze lingered on Adam, there was something in her expression, something fleeting, almost imperceptible, that hinted at a deeper, hidden emotion. To the outside world, the Lawson-Blake wedding seemed like a fairy tale. But behind the smiles and celebrations, dark secrets were brewing, secrets that would soon shatter the lives of everyone involved. As the night wore on, subtle signs of tension began to surface. A lingering touch here, a stolen glance there. Small moments that might have gone unnoticed by most but not by Ethan. He saw everything, and though he said nothing, his quiet observations would later become the key to unraveling the truth. And then, just days before the wedding, everything fell apart. A betrayal so devastating, a crime so brutal, that it would leave the town of Willow Creek in shock. Who killed Adam Blake and why? Was it an act of jealousy, revenge, or something far more sinister? The answer will leave you speechless. This is the story of love, betrayal, and murder in Willow Creek. A story that reminds us that even the happiest moments can hide the darkest secrets. To understand how this tragedy unfolded, we must go back to the beginning, to the night of the pre-wedding party, where the first cracks in the perfect facade began to show. The evening was perfect, almost too perfect. In the small, picturesque town of Willow Creek, the Lawson family's garden was transformed into a scene straight out of a romantic novel. Strings of glowing lanterns hung delicately from the trees, casting a warm, golden light over the gathering. The scent of freshly cut roses mingled with the aroma of gourmet dishes, creating an atmosphere that felt both intimate and magical. It was the kind of night where love seemed to be in the air, and for Mia Lawson and Adam Blake, it was supposed to mark the beginning of their forever. Mia, dressed in a flowing blush gown, was the picture of happiness. Her laughter rang out as she moved through the crowd, her hand often intertwined with Adam's. Adam, with his easy charm and ever-present smile, seemed equally smitten. The way he looked at Mia, like she was the only person in the world, did not go unnoticed by the guests. Together, they were the epitome of young love, and their story had all the makings of a fairy tale. Overseeing it all was Mia's mother, Lila Walker. As the hostess of the evening, Laura had spared no effort in making the event unforgettable. Her understated yet elegant dress reflected her pride, and her every movement exuded grace. When she raised her glass to toast the couple, her voice was filled with emotion. "To my beautiful daughter and her wonderful fiancé," she began, her eyes glistening with tears. "Mia, you've always been my light, and Adam, you've brought her so much happiness. May your lives together be filled with love, laughter, and endless joy." The guests erupted in applause, their glasses clinking in celebration. But not everyone was caught up in the moment. Ethan Cole, Mia's childhood friend, stood quietly at the edge of the crowd. He had always been there for Mia, a constant presence in her life, though never in the spotlight. His quiet demeanor often made him fade into the background, but tonight, his sharp eyes caught something others missed. As Laura's gaze lingered on Adam, there was a flicker of something that didn't quite belong in a mother's eyes. Pride, yes, but also something deeper, something unsettling. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He watched as Laura moved through the crowd, her interactions with Adam just a little too familiar, her touches lingering a moment too long. To anyone else, it might have seemed innocent, but to Ethan, who had spent years observing Mia's life from the sidelines, it was a detail that didn't sit right. He said nothing, of course. After all, it was Mia's night, and he didn't want to cast a shadow over her happiness. But as the evening wore on, the cracks in the perfect facade began to show. Small, almost imperceptible moments, an exchange of glances, a fleeting touch, hinted at a secret that no one dared to acknowledge. A secret that, in just a few days, would unravel into a tragedy no one in Willow Creek could have imagined. While the guests left that night with smiles on their faces, the events that followed would reveal that not everything was as it seemed. Beneath the surface of this picture-perfect celebration lay a darkness that would soon come to light. In the days following the pre-wedding party, the excitement of Mia Lawson's upcoming wedding began to give way to a creeping sense of unease. At first it was subtle, small things that Mia tried to brush off as pre-wedding jitters. But as the days passed, those small things began to pile up, forming a picture she couldn't ignore. Adam Blake, her fiancé, had always been attentive and involved in the wedding planning. But now he seemed distracted, distant even. He began spending more and more time at Laura Lawson's house, Mia's mother, under the pretense of finalizing wedding details. "Your mom just wants everything to be perfect," Adam would say with a reassuring smile. But the reassurance didn't reach Mia's heart. Why was he spending so much time there? And why did it feel like he was avoiding her questions? Mia tried to convince herself that she was overthinking. After all, Laura had always been deeply involved in her life, and her enthusiasm for the wedding was no surprise. But when Mia decided to visit her mother unannounced one afternoon, her doubts began to solidify. As she approached the house, she noticed the curtains drawn, a rare occurrence for Laura, who loved the sunlight streaming into her home. And then she heard voices. Adam's voice. Her heart sank. When Mia entered the house, Laura greeted her warmly, but there was a tension in the air that Mia couldn't ignore. Adam was nowhere to be seen, though Mia was certain she had heard him just moments before. "Oh, he just left," Laura said quickly, her tone too casual, her smile too forced. Mia's eyes scanned the room, searching for any sign of him, but found nothing. The unease in her chest grew heavier. Meanwhile, Ethan Cole, Mia's childhood friend, had been watching from the sidelines. He had always been protective of Mia, and lately he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He noticed the way Laura and Adam interacted, how their conversations seemed too personal, their touches too familiar. To anyone else it might have seemed innocent, but to Ethan it was a red flag. He didn't say anything to Mia, not yet. But the suspicion gnawed at him, fueling a quiet anger he kept buried deep inside. Mia too was torn. Was she imagining things? Was her anxiety about the wedding clouding her judgment? Or was there something truly wrong? The questions plagued her, keeping her awake at night. She wanted to believe in Adam, to trust her mother, but the nagging feeling in her gut refused to go away. And as the days passed, that feeling would only grow stronger, pushing Mia closer to a truth she wasn't ready to face. Little did Mia know, the answers to her questions were closer than she realized. And when the truth finally came to light, it would shatter her world in ways she could never have imagined. It was a quiet evening in the small town of Willow Creek, the kind of night where the streets were empty, and the only sounds were the faint rustling of leaves in the cool breeze. But for Mia Lawson, this was no ordinary night. Her suspicions about her fiancé, Adam Blake, and her mother, Laura Lawson, had been growing for days. And now, she was determined to find the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Adam had told Mia he was meeting with the florist to finalize the arrangements for the wedding. But something about his tone didn't sit right with her. It was too rehearsed, too casual. So, when he left the house, Mia decided to follow him. Her heart pounded as she drove a few car lengths behind him, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. She didn't know what she was looking for, but deep down, she feared what she might find. Adam's car eventually pulled into the driveway of Laura's house. Mia parked a short distance away, her breath catching in her throat. She watched as Adam stepped out of the car, glancing around nervously before heading inside. The sight sent a chill down her spine. Why was he here again? And why hadn't he mentioned it? Unable to stop herself, Mia crept toward the house, her footsteps silent on the pavement. The curtains were drawn, but a faint glow of light spilled through the edges. She moved to the side of the house, where a small gap in the curtains gave her a clear view of the living room. What she saw next would haunt her forever. Inside, Adam and Laura stood close, their voices low and intimate. Mia's heart raced as she watched her mother place a hand on Adam's shoulder, her fingers lingering in a way that was anything but maternal. And then, it happened. Laura leaned in and Adam didn't pull away. Their lips met in a kiss that shattered Mia's world in an instant. For a moment, Mia couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. It felt as though the ground had been ripped out from under her. The two people she trusted most in the world had betrayed her in the most unimaginable way. Tears streamed down her face as she stumbled back, her mind racing with questions she couldn't answer. How long had this been going on? How could they do this to her? And what was she supposed to do now? Unbeknownst to Mia, she wasn't the only one who had witnessed the betrayal. Ethan Cole, her childhood friend, had been walking nearby when he noticed her car parked outside Laura's house. Curious, he followed her and saw her peering through the window. When he looked inside, he saw it too, the kiss that confirmed his worst fears. But while Mia was consumed by heartbreak, Ethan was consumed by something far darker: rage. Ethan had always loved Mia, though he had never told her. And now, seeing Adam and Laura together, he felt a surge of anger he couldn't control. How could Adam betray Mia like this? How could Laura, her own mother, be part of it? In that moment, Ethan made a decision that would change all their lives forever. As Mia fled the scene, her heart broken and her mind racing, the events set in motion that night would soon spiral out of control. And by the time the truth came to light, it would be too late to stop the tragedy that was about to unfold. The morning after Mia Lawson's world was shattered, the quiet town of Willow Creek awoke to a scene of horror. Just as the sun began to rise, a jogger passing through the neighborhood made a gruesome discovery: a man's lifeless body lying in the wooded area just behind Laura Lawson's house. The victim was quickly identified as Adam Blake, Mia's fiancé. His body bore the unmistakable signs of a brutal and violent attack. The news spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves through the community. Adam, the charming and well-liked man who was set to marry Mia in just a few days, was now the center of a murder investigation. The idyllic image of Willow Creek was shattered, replaced by fear and suspicion. Who could have done this? And why? When the police arrived at the scene, their attention immediately turned to the location of the body. It was found just a few yards from Laura Lawson's property, raising questions about her involvement. As investigators combed through the area, they uncovered more troubling details. Adam's injuries suggested a crime of passion: multiple stab wounds inflicted with a level of rage that pointed to someone who knew him well. And then there was the affair. Whispers of Adam's relationship with Laura began to surface, painting her as the prime suspect in the eyes of the police. Laura, however, denied any involvement. She claimed she had been home alone that night, unaware of Adam's whereabouts. But her alibi was weak, and the discovery of Adam's body so close to her home made her story difficult to believe. The police began to dig deeper, questioning her about the nature of her relationship with Adam. Laura's calm demeanor began to crack under the pressure, but she maintained her innocence. For Mia, the discovery of Adam's body was almost too much to bear. She was already reeling from the betrayal she had witnessed the night before, and now she was faced with the possibility that her own mother might have been involved in his murder. The thought was unbearable. How could the woman who had raised her, who had been her rock, be capable of such a heinous act? Mia's mind raced with questions, but no answers came. She was trapped in a whirlwind of grief, anger, and confusion. Meanwhile, Ethan Cole remained in the background, offering Mia his support. To everyone else, he seemed like the loyal friend, the steady presence Mia needed during such a devastating time. But beneath his calm exterior, Ethan was struggling to contain his own emotions. He had seen the betrayal with his own eyes, and now Adam was dead. The timing was too perfect, too convenient. Ethan's quiet rage simmered just below the surface, but he said nothing, choosing instead to stay close to Mia and watch as the investigation unfolded. As the police continued their work, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. But the truth, when it finally came to light, would be far more shocking than anyone in Willow Creek could have imagined. With Laura under suspicion and Mia grappling with her own doubts, the investigation was about to take a turn that no one saw coming. The secrets buried in Willow Creek were about to be exposed, and the consequences would change everything.
The murder of Adam Blake sent shockwaves through the quiet town of Cedar Ridge, Iowa. What had once been a peaceful community was now the epicenter of a chilling investigation. Leading the case was Detective Lila Walker, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for solving even the most complex crimes. From the moment she arrived at the scene, Detective Walker knew this was no random act of violence. The brutality of the attack and the personal nature of the crime pointed to someone close to Adam, someone with a motive rooted in betrayal and obsession. Early in the investigation, suspicion fell on Laura Lawson, the woman at the center of Adam's affair. The discovery of Adam's body just yards from her home and the revelation of their secret relationship made her an obvious suspect. Laura, however, vehemently denied any involvement. She admitted to the affair but insisted she had no knowledge of Adam's whereabouts on the night of the murder. Despite her claims, circumstantial evidence kept her under scrutiny. Her proximity to the crime scene and the scandal surrounding her affair painted a damning picture, but Detective Walker wasn't convinced. Something about Laura's demeanor suggested she was hiding something, but was it guilt or simply shame? As the investigation progressed, another figure began to emerge from the shadows: Ethan Cole, Mia Lawson's childhood friend. At first glance, Ethan seemed like the perfect confidant, always by Mia's side, offering her support in the wake of Adam's death. But as Detective Walker dug deeper, a darker side of Ethan began to surface. Witnesses reported seeing him near Laura's house on the night of the murder, and his behavior in the days leading up to the crime raised more questions than answers. Detective Walker obtained a search warrant for Ethan's apartment, and what she found there was deeply unsettling. Hidden in a drawer was a notebook filled with detailed notes about Mia, her daily routines, her favorite places, even the times she was most likely to be alone. The pages were filled with obsessive musings about her, alongside angry, hate-filled rants about Adam. Phrases like "he doesn't deserve her" and "she'll see the truth soon" were scrawled in bold, erratic handwriting. It was clear that Ethan's feelings for Mia went far beyond friendship. But the most damning piece of evidence came from surveillance footage obtained from a neighbor's security camera. The grainy video showed a figure matching Ethan's description walking near Laura's house late on the night of the murder. The timestamp placed him at the scene just an hour before Adam's body was discovered. When confronted with this evidence, Ethan claimed he had been out for a walk, trying to clear his head. But his explanation did little to satisfy Detective Walker, who couldn't ignore the mounting evidence against him. With Laura's involvement still uncertain and Ethan's obsessive behavior coming to light, the investigation took a dramatic turn. Detective Walker began to piece together a narrative of jealousy, betrayal, and unrequited love, a toxic combination that had already claimed one life. But as the case unfolded, one question remained: was Ethan truly capable of murder, or was there another layer to this story waiting to be uncovered? As the evidence against Ethan continued to build, Detective Walker knew she was closing in on the truth. But in Cedar Ridge, where secrets ran deep and emotions ran high, the final revelation would be more shocking than anyone could have imagined. With the investigation closing in on Ethan Cole, Detective Lila Walker knew she needed more than circumstantial evidence to secure a conviction. The surveillance footage, the obsessive notebook, and his erratic behavior painted a damning picture, but it wasn't enough. What she needed was a confession. And to get it, she would have to take a calculated risk, one that would test the emotional limits of everyone involved. Detective Walker approached Mia Lawson with a plan. It was bold, dangerous even, but it might be the only way to uncover the truth. Mia would have to confront Ethan directly, pretending to reciprocate the feelings he had harbored for her all these years. The goal was to draw out his emotions, to push him to reveal what he had done. At first, Mia was horrified by the idea. The thought of manipulating someone she had once trusted, someone she had considered a friend, was almost too much to bear. But as she thought about Adam, about the betrayal and the violence that had shattered her life, she knew she had no choice. She had to know the truth. The meeting was arranged at a quiet park on the outskirts of Cedar Ridge, a place where Ethan and Mia had spent time together as children. The setting was meant to put Ethan at ease, to remind him of the bond they once shared. As Mia approached him, her heart pounded in her chest. She forced a smile, masking the fear and disgust that churned inside her. Ethan, unaware of the plan, seemed almost relieved to see her. His eyes lit up with a mix of hope and desperation. "I've been thinking a lot about us," Mia began, her voice trembling just enough to sound genuine. "About everything that's happened. I feel like I can't trust anyone anymore, except you." The words felt like poison on her tongue, but they had the desired effect. Ethan's face softened and he leaned in closer, his voice low and urgent. "You can trust me, Mia. I've always been here for you. I've always protected you." As the conversation continued, Detective Walker and her team listened from a hidden location, their recording devices capturing every word. Mia pressed on, carefully steering the conversation toward Adam. "I just don't understand why this happened," she said, her voice breaking. "Why would someone do this to him?" Ethan's demeanor shifted. His hands trembled and his voice grew unsteady. "He didn't deserve you, Mia," he said, his words laced with anger. "He lied to you. He betrayed you. I couldn't let him hurt you anymore." Mia's breath caught in her throat as Ethan continued, his voice rising with emotion. I did it for you, Mia. I did it because I love you. I couldn't stand to see him treat you like that. In that moment, the weight of Ethan's words hit Mia like a tidal wave. The man she had once trusted, the friend who had stood by her side for years, had killed Adam in a twisted attempt to protect her. Her horror was impossible to hide, and tears streamed down her face as she struggled to maintain her composure. You killed him? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Ethan nodded, his expression a mix of pride and anguish. I did it for us, Mia. Don't you see? I did it for you. Before Ethan could say more, Detective Walker and her team emerged, placing him under arrest. As the handcuffs clicked into place, Ethan's face crumbled, the weight of his actions finally sinking in. For Mia, the moment was both a relief and a heartbreak. The truth had come to light, but it had come at an unimaginable cost. With Ethan's confession, the case was finally solved. But for Mia and the town of Cedar Ridge, the scars left by Adam's murder and the betrayal of trust would take far longer to heal. And as the trial loomed, the community braced itself for the revelations yet to come. The arrest of Ethan Cole brought an end to the investigation, but for the people of Cedar Ridge, Iowa, the wounds left behind would take far longer to heal. As Ethan was led away in handcuffs, he remained steadfast in his belief that he had acted out of love. I did it for her, he repeated, his voice trembling with a mix of pride and desperation. To him, the murder of Adam Blake was not a crime, but a twisted act of devotion, a way to protect Mia Lawson from betrayal. But in reality, it was an act that destroyed everything it touched. Lila Lawson, once the center of suspicion, was officially cleared of any involvement in Adam's murder. But the damage to her reputation was already done. The revelation of her affair with Adam had turned her into a pariah in Cedar Ridge. Friends and neighbors who once admired her now avoided her, their judgment heavy and unrelenting. Lila retreated into isolation, her life forever marked by the choices she had made and the consequences that followed. For Mia Lawson, the aftermath was nothing short of devastating. In the span of a few days, she had lost everything she held dear: her fiancé, the trust she had in her mother, and the friendship she had cherished since childhood. The betrayal by her mother and the horrifying truth about Ethan left her grappling with a profound sense of loss and confusion. How could the people she loved most have caused her so much pain? Mia's grief was compounded by guilt, as she replayed the events in her mind, wondering if there was something she could have done to prevent the tragedy. Detective Lila Walker, reflecting on the case, couldn't help but feel a deep sadness for everyone involved. This wasn't just a murder, she later said. It was a chain reaction of betrayal, obsession, and unrequited love. Ethan convinced himself that his actions were noble, but in the end, they were driven by his own insecurities and delusions. And the fallout from that obsession destroyed more lives than just Adam's. The case of Adam Blake's murder became a cautionary tale in Cedar Ridge, a reminder of how quickly love can turn into something dark and dangerous. It was a story of betrayal layered upon betrayal, where every choice carried devastating consequences. And for those left behind, the scars would serve as a permanent reminder of the fragility of trust and the destructive power of unchecked emotions. In the quiet town of Cedar Ridge, one betrayal led to another, and in the end, no one escaped unscathed. The tragic events in Cedar Ridge, Iowa, serve as a haunting reminder of how love, when twisted by obsession and betrayal, can lead to devastating consequences. Ethan Cole's actions, fueled by unrequited feelings and a distorted sense of loyalty, left a trail of heartbreak and destruction. Adam Blake lost his life, Lila Lawson faced public humiliation, and Mia Lawson was left to pick up the shattered pieces of her world. In the end, no one emerged unscathed. This case highlights the dangers of unchecked emotions, how obsession can cloud judgment, how betrayal can fracture even the strongest bonds, and how secrets, no matter how deeply buried, always find their way to the surface. It's a sobering lesson about the importance of trust, communication, and recognizing the warning signs of unhealthy relationships before it's too late. If this story has resonated with you, we encourage you to reflect on its lessons. Have you ever experienced betrayal or witnessed the consequences of obsession? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about how we can learn from these tragedies and build stronger, healthier connections in our own lives. Don't forget to like this video for more visibility, share it with others so we can all learn from this story, and subscribe to our channel to support our work. Turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when we release our next gripping true crime documentary. Together, we can continue to explore these stories and uncover the truths that need to be told.